What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of The Daily Entrepreneur, episode 21. I'm Jack, and I'm here with James and Josh. We got a great episode for you today, starting with
Equifax, the credit consumer reporting company, has started to fire employees in which they've found that are working multiple jobs. In other words, they've been using a software, and they've been able to check different companies' payrolls and firing people that work for them that also are working for other companies. What are your guys' thoughts on this?
I mean, I think it's crazy. I didn't even know that many people were actually picking up, a second job or working multiple jobs at the same time. I know that definitely became a thing, like during the pandemic, where people are like, "Oh, like I'm working from home now. I have a bunch of extra time. Let me just go ahead and get a second job." But like, I didn't know people were still doing that today, which is kind of crazy to me.
Yeah, well, I think that it's kind of crazy. You said they were spying on them?
Yeah, so essentially there's this software that Equifax is using called the Work Number, in which they've been able to track about 2.5 million companies' payrolls, and they've been able to see if there's any crossings between their employees and if they work for other companies. And I think they found more than 20 people already that are not only getting paid from them, but also from other companies, and they've just started to fire them.
I honestly think that's pretty ridiculous. I mean, as long as you get your stuff done at work and you're getting the stuff done for Equifax, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to make other income. As long as they didn't have an agreement set across in the first place, like, oh, you're only allowed to work at Equifax, and you got, like, here's why. Basically, if people aren't satisfied with what they're getting working at Equifax, they wouldn't have to go find other jobs and seek other sources of income.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of on the same wave with you. It's really just like, as long as you're getting everything that you need to get done here at Equifax, then if you want to do something else, you're more than welcome to. But I don't know if you try to look at it from Equifax's side, what do you guys? What's the kind of reasoning there where you're like, hey, like we need to get rid of all these people that are working two jobs?
I think it ultimately stems from, because I don't know if it's someone from like just the head of the company at like the base level of like the top of Equifax, but I think it's more individualized, right? So it's like if there's someone in charge of those people who are working multiple jobs, I think if they're being efficient at what they're doing, like you guys have already said, if you're getting all you need to get done, you're showing up, you're being prompt, and you're being an efficient employee, then I don't think it really matters. Yeah. But I think it's probably more individualized, like person by person. Maybe there were some people that were enrolled or working for another company, and they just weren't getting the output out of them. So that I can understand. But I think just to like fire someone for having a side hustle or for trying to work another job, like you said, the pandemic, the economy's tanking, we're in a rough spot right now. I don't think that people should be penalized and fired for that.
Would you guys work a second job?
Yeah.
On the main one? You guys just have two full-time main jobs. Would you guys do that or no?
I mean, it depends if, like, my output is going to be the same for both of them, or at least, like, the one that pays more, my output is going to be just fine, then yeah, sure, why not make some extra income? Why not grind?
I'm just curious, what do they do if they have a meeting at the same time? You have two like team meetings at 10 a.m. Like what do you do?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. That's where it becomes a conflict of interest, and if that's the case, then you probably shouldn't be working that second job. You would need to try to find something that kind of lines up with your schedule to make sure that you can do both successfully. My biggest thing that's coming out of the story that I think we haven't talked about yet is what's good with the privacy issue. Like, what's good with them spying on their employees' privacy like this? There could be a huge lawsuit that comes out about this, especially if if they were able to rally enough troops to the people that got fired and really press a lawsuit of like, why are you spying on what I'm doing outside of the company? As long as there's not an agreement in there that this is the only form of employment that you can obtain.
Yeah, and this software that they're using, I want to know how they got access to the payroll of all these different companies throughout the country.
Well, it's Equifax. It's a credit reporting company.
Right.
So, yeah.
It makes sense, but at the same time, it's crazy that like those payrolls were that accessible.
Well, yeah, it's using the data that they should be using to.
Like client data should be completely separate from company data.
Exactly. So like they shouldn't be infringing upon that client data to be able to cross-check and use that against their employees in their company. So I think that there could be a major lawsuit. I'm sure we'll be talking about this on another episode.
I mean, dude, talking about lawsuits, the Beyond Meat chief operating officer just pretty much left the Beyond Meat company because he bit someone on the face.
Oh my God.
I mean, all I gotta say is, I mean, what are you doing with this guy? This dude bites you on the nose, man. So I'm just curious, right? So you're the chief, you're the chief operating officer at a company. How do you, like, as a CEO, how do you address what happened on the executive team?
Yeah, I mean, that's a PR nightmare. So it's like, obviously, obviously you let the guy go, but it's like I don't know, like internally. I mean, that probably has just a major.
I mean, that's gonna be a fun email to send.
Was
Ladies,
it a
and, ladies and
client?
gentlemen of
You
Beyond
said it was
Me,
like it was like a client that he.
No, it was after a football game. So the craziest thing is if we look at it right here, it happened after a. So he bit a man's nose after a football game in Arkansas. So I guess it was just getting really competitive and heated around there, and they just decided to bite someone on the nose. And I mean,
well, yeah, just imagine you're the CEO of Beyond Meat. You're sending that email, ladies and gentlemen, it's come to our attention that our chief operating officer has been imprisoned for a.
is that assault or what?
yeah.
What even is that?
I mean, that's just bizarre. I mean, how do you guys handle that?
I mean, I think he definitely has to go. I mean, if it's a local company, like a local small business, I think he can get away with that. But just being as big as a company as they are already.
Yeah, the story already broke. Your company sells artificial meat, like vegan meat, but yet you got your COO biting human flesh. I mean, it doesn't really look good.
Do you think he almost has to like switch careers after that, or do you think he can continue to be an executive somewhere else, or no?
If someone takes him,
I don't know.
I really don't.
I
I
don't
don't
people, especially like being that high up, like in the public eye, people already knowing that. I just don't think it's a good look.
You gotta think like it's probably not worth it enough to a company for what he's gonna bring to the table to bring on just like a PR disturbance pretty much, and people coming after them for you have an unhinged COO.
Yeah, who knows, man? It's pretty odd to say the least. So, but what did you have what did you have next?
Yeah, so I mean, there's been some controversy lately, as of late, with just a lot of stuff going on with the media and censorship and stuff like that. And so recently, it's came out that Kanye West wants to buy the conservative social media platform Parlor. This is because many of the social media platforms like Instagram and Twitter have banned his accounts for comments that he said. What are your guys' thoughts on him buying Parlor, and what do you think this means for going forward? Kind of like we've seen the trend of Elon buying Twitter, trying to change like the censorship and free speech thing. So what do you guys think about this, and how is this going to shake up the social media landscape now that Kanye is looking to buy this sort of thing?
I think it's a really interesting move, and I think that it really brings a very different kind of demographic and audience perhaps to Parlor. Now, the one thing about Parlor is, if I remember correctly, it was kind of like disabled from the App Store.
It's back on.
It's back on, so it's been restored. But now I feel like a lot of Parlor's communities kind of gravitated towards Rumble, which is another kind of up-and-coming like media platform.
Yeah.
But I think that if Kanye is able to get a lot of some of these other influencers that he's been working with lately to kind of like help promote it with him, then perhaps, who knows? I mean, they could be a liable kind of like a competitor to like a Twitter or something like that.
Exactly. And I'm actually not too familiar with Parlor. What is it, like Twitter?
It's very similar to a Twitter, but it's a very like news storyline heavy.
Okay.
But there's a lot of people that I don't remember the exact phrase for like what like a tweet on there is, but it's pretty much just like
so
a
like
Twitter.
their posts are kind of like news-oriented tweets, kind of.
Right,
Yeah.
but very like. Again, very adamant about like no censorship or anything like that. I mean, at least with a lot of people that are getting kind of like canceled or like censored, it's just because people don't agree with their opinions, right?
Yeah.
So it's not that they're being violent or like threatening people, but rather just kind of giving people the freedom of speech that a lot of people have kind of been denied on various platforms like Facebook or Instagram or Twitter.
Well, I'm definitely a big fan of these new platforms coming in that are definitely promoting like, hey, less censorship, more owned by the people that are within it. And I think, the big one that we talked about is Rumble. I think that's a big one on the come up right now. If anything, that's what people will gravitate to more, if not Parlor. But what do you guys think about, A-list celebrities buying these social media platforms now? Like, do you think that this is a good thing or a bad thing?
I think ultimately it is a good thing because, I mean, especially like when you have someone like Kanye who's as renowned as him that's able to promote it at like the front and center, if that's what he ultimately decides to do. Maybe he's got other people that are in charge of that. But I think that if you're going to get like the utmost migration of people towards this app, you're going to have to kind of put Kanye at the front and center of it, because otherwise I just don't think that the hype's going to be there and people are going to want to gravitate off Twitter or from a different platform onto Parlor. So I think that it's interesting because, if someone who's not particularly known, who owns a major tech company or is really maybe they're popular or famous in the business sense, and they come and they buy another company. I don't know how much of like the younger population that they can get to gravitate towards their platforms. So.
Yeah, and I completely agree about the younger generation issue, is because like kind of what you've seen on these other social platforms is there's a barrier from, like, I would say, somewhat of a middle to right political stance, where it's like people that aren't over that line really aren't looking at these platforms, or just staying to the typical Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, the current social platforms. It's become kind of like a little bit of a political divide. What they need to do in order to get Parlor to be a success is they need to be able to make it so that they can get people on board with the free speech thing, and not really bring people in from
Include
everyone pretty much, and get them on board with wanting to be a part of the social media platform, something that's attractive to them enough to add that to their repertoire of social media apps that they scroll on all day long.
Yeah.
And until that they're able to do that, and to be able to say that, like, hey, it's not just people, that are on one side of the political aisle on this platform, I don't think everybody's going to go over there immediately, because they're just going to write it off as something that's political and not just another interesting social media platform for people to use. And that's why it's interesting that Kanye's coming on board, is because I think, like, from his artistic background, what he could probably bring to the platform is something that's going to want to open up from a creative perspective, and get people, open up a chance for creatives to really make some really interesting content on there, and evolve it into something to where it's not really just free speech is a benefit of the platform, but it's not really the forefront of the platform. It's really whatever the content's going to drive.
Like it is it is its own platform.
It's
That's
its own
the
platform.
basis of
Yeah,
it. That's
it's not a benefit of the platform needs to have a benefit that's free speech, and no censorship is going to be a part of it. But you can't make that your extreme bargaining tool to try to get people to come over, because then they're just going to write it off as like, oh, these people said some comments and got banned off these, why do I want to go join their platform?
Yeah.
Even though that, like, people that understand why they made it.
If I'm Kanye right now, I don't know if I'm trying to pick up Parlor, but if I could somehow get a piece of ownership of Rumble, maybe that's what I would try to do. Reason being, I just feel like Rumble right now is definitely leading the race here in terms of the two. And I mean, Rumble right now already has so many public figures that are getting banned off these other platforms and are migrating there. So I feel like that could be a great move for him. Is just trying to get there and trying to pull more people there. Because I think him being there with all the others, all the other public figures that are already there, could be a selling point for, hey, this could really be the next up and coming big platform.
Yeah, I think another thing too, like with these platforms that are coming out for the no censorship thing and the free speech, is I did see one problem with some of them was that, like, their ads that are being targeted to people are very political. And I think one thing that you could fix this is that you could really try to digest the user experience of people that come on the app, so that they're not hit right away with like a political ad that's against their current stances, and then they're just like, oh, I never want to use this ever again.
Yeah. And my question is for these apps is, at what point is no censorship, like, where's the line drawn necessarily?
I think, again, like I said earlier, it's like if you're like threatening, like if you're like a terrorist regime or something like that, then I think perhaps it's like that's kind of where you draw the line. Like, you're threatening a public figure, just in general, like anything of like violence in that type of way, or bigotry, I would say, in that sense as well. But it's like, again, like if you just have your own opinions on things and you're not harming anyone, and it's your own thoughts and opinions, then I don't think that you should be penalized or banned or censored or shadowed for that.
Yeah, cool. Because and the reason being for that is because there's tons of people all over the internet that just have like fake aliases, or they just have like random profile pictures. They don't have an identity. They don't have burners. They don't have an identity. That's something that Elon's trying to change with Twitter. Is that there's no, because obviously there's a little bit, it's unfair that somebody who has a burner and a fake identity is able to talk about whatever the hell they want to talk about. They're never going to get banned because they don't have any influence, but they're still able to say what they want to say. Whereas somebody who they do have amassed a following and they say something, they can get banned for it just because it's targeting the masses. The only difference is that's why Elon wants to change Twitter, is because it's like, look, if we can verify what your identity is, then we can, evaluate what you're saying fairly compared to everybody else. It's not just like you have, 5 million followers, so we're going to ban you, versus the guy with like 3 followers and he's just, being really he's threatening people in a Twitter thread. And so
100%. And I think that just about wraps it up for this episode of The Daily Entrepreneur. But before we get wrapped up, James, I hope you have a great day. But that being said, Jack has the daily quote.
Oh, he came right to me.
I've got it.
You've got
Oh,
it.
he's got it.
I'd rather have loyalty than love, because love really don't mean jack.
Bam. You heard it here first. If you haven't already, leave a like and subscribe. Would really appreciate that. Hope you have a great day.